You remember it. You can almost see it. There's a theme song somewhere in the back of your brain, a laugh track, a face you recognize, a couch, a kitchen, a wisecracking kid. You watch this show every single week. Millions of people watch this show every single week. It was a genuine cultural moment. And then, one day, it just stopped. No funeral, no farewell special, no retrospective on E! exclamation point. Just gone, vanished like it never existed. Today we're going to drag some of those shows back into the light. Hi, my name is Aaron, and this is Old TV Cinema, where we go digging through the television graveyard so you don't have to. If you've been here before, you know how this goes. If you're new, welcome, buckle up, and maybe grab something to eat because we're gonna be here for a while. Off, why the 90s were a different beast. Here's something people forget about 90s television. It was absolutely, completely, almost irresponsibly oversaturated with content. And I say that with love. Think about what was on the air between 1990 and 2000. Friends, Seinfeld, Frasier, ER, The X-Files, Buffy, Dawson's Creek, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Everybody Loves Raymond, The Simpsons hitting its absolute peak, NYPD, Blue, Law and Order, Home Improvement. We were drowning in television and we didn't even know it. But here's the thing about a golden age. Not everything makes it out the other side. For every Friends, there were 3 or 4 shows pulling 15, 20, sometimes 30 million viewers a week that have been almost completely erased from the cultural conversation. Not because they were bad, as some of them were genuinely great, but because television in the 90s moved fast, the networks were ruthless, syndication was a lottery, and streaming wasn't there yet to preserve everything in amber. In the 90s, if your show didn't hit syndication, if it didn't land on TBS or Nick at Night or one of those Saturday afternoon rerun blocks, it just quietly disappeared. And the bar for syndication was brutal. You needed roughly 100 episodes to be viable. That's about 5 seasons of a 22-episode network run. A lot of shows made it to 3 seasons, pulled decent numbers the whole time, and then just fell off the earth. And then the internet happened, and instead of rescuing these shows, it mostly just made sure that Friends got rewatched for the 11 billionth time. No offense to Friends, but you see what I'm saying. So today, we're talking about 5 shows that were genuine hits. Shows that real human beings watched in massive numbers. Shows that shaped careers and launched stars and made networks money. And then just evaporated. My Two Dads. Okay, My Two Dads. Quick, without Googling it, name one character from My Two Dads. 1. I'll wait. If you said Michael or Joey, congratulations. You're either a super fan or you just have an incredible memory. For everyone else, don't feel bad. This show ran for 3 seasons on NBC, premiered in 1987, pulled numbers that most modern shows would absolutely kill for, and has essentially vanished from the pop culture record. Here's the premise. A woman named Marcy dies and leaves behind a teenage daughter named Nicole. The catch, Marcy had 2 potential fathers on the hook, and she never told anyone which one it was. So rather than a custody battle or a DNA test, which would have been a much shorter show, a judge decides that both men will raise Nicole together. One of them is Michael, a straight-laced financial advisor played by Paul Reiser. The other is Joey, a free-spirited artist played by Greg Evigan. They move in together, raise the kid, and bicker constantly. Look, on paper that sounds insane. In practice it worked. The chemistry between Reiser and Evigan was genuinely funny. The writing was sharp for a late 80s sitcom, and audiences responded. The show debuted strong and climbed. By season 2, My Two Dads doesn't have that. The Sinbad Show doesn't have that. My Two Dads was averaging around 20 million viewers per episode and sitting comfortably in NBC's lineup alongside other heavy hitters. 20 million viewers. Do you understand what that number means today? That's a cultural event. That's Super Bowl adjacent territory for a regular Tuesday night. The show was nominated for awards. It had merchandise. Kids loved it. And then season 3 happened, and the wheels started wobbling. NBC moved the show around the schedule, the ratings dipped, and the network made the call, canceled. No real send-off, no movie, no reunion, just done. Paul Reiser, to his credit, went on to create Mad About You, which was a massive hit in the 90s and is now also slightly forgotten, which is a whole other video. Greg Evigan bounced around television for years, but My Two Dads itself, It never made it to syndication in any meaningful way. It's not on any major streaming platform. It's basically a ghost. And here's the cruel irony. The concept of My Two Dads was actually pretty progressive for 1987. Two men co-parenting, non-traditional family structures. The show was ahead of its time in a lot of ways, which means it should, in theory, be ripe for rediscovery. But nobody's rediscovering it. It's just sitting in a vault somewhere while Paul Reiser does other things. The Sinbad Show. If you grew up in the early 90s and you watched Fox, you know Sinbad. The comedian, not the sailor, although honestly both are equally legendary, and I will die on that hill. Sinbad was everywhere in the early 90s. Stand-up specials, movie roles, guest appearances. He had a presence that was impossible to ignore. Loud, physical, charismatic, genuinely funny. So when Fox gave him his own sitcom in 1993, it felt like a sure thing. The Sinbad Show ran for one season on Fox. The premise was simple. Sinbad played David Bryan, a bachelor and video game designer who becomes the foster parent to two kids after his best friend dies. It's warm, it's funny, it's got heart, and it was anchored by one of the most naturally gifted physical comedians working in television at the time. The show pulled solid numbers. It wasn't topping the charts, but it was a respectable performer for Fox in a competitive time slot. Critics liked it, audiences liked it. And then Fox canceled it after one season to make room for other programming. Now here's where it gets a little complicated and a little frustrating. The Sinbad Show aired in the same era as other black sitcoms that are now considered essential television. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Martin, Living Single, Family Matters. If those shows are remembered, celebrated, endlessly discussed, and rewatched. But the Sinbad Show has been quietly left out of that conversation almost entirely. Some of that is streaming. Fresh Prince is on Max. Martin is accessible. Living Single got a proper platform. The Sinbad Show, largely inaccessible. And when a show isn't accessible, it stops being part of the conversation. It's not a complicated equation, it's just a depressing one. Sinbad himself has talked about the show over the years, with a mix of fondness and frustration. He built something real in that one season, and it didn't get a chance to breathe. And the comedy landscape of the early 90s was full of shows like this. Shows that did everything right, and still got swallowed by the machine. Covington Cross. Okay, this one is special. Pull up a chair. Covington Cross aired on ABC in 1992. It was a medieval family drama set in 14th century England. Big budget, lush production, a cast of British and American actors, horses, castles, the whole thing. ABC poured money into this show. The pilot alone reportedly cost more than any pilot ABC had ever produced up to that point. 8 episodes. The show lasted 8 episodes before ABC pulled it off the air. Now, you might be thinking, okay, Aaron, if it only lasted 8 episodes, it doesn't really qualify as a show everyone watched, does it? And normally I'd agree with you. But here's the thing about Covington Cross. The pilot drew massive numbers. People were curious. A primetime medieval drama on network television was genuinely unprecedented. This, the premiere pulled in viewers who hadn't made up their minds yet about whether this kind of show could work on ABC on a Saturday night. And then the reviews came out, the audience dropped episode by episode, and ABC made the call faster than almost any show in their history up to that point. 8 episodes. They didn't even air all of them in the original run. Some aired out of order. It was chaos. The show cost a fortune to make and returned almost nothing. And because it was so short-lived and so expensive and ended so abruptly, it became something of a cautionary tale inside the industry. For years, network executives used Covington Cross as a shorthand for, this is what happens when you swing too big and miscalculate the audience. The irony, of course, is that Game of Thrones premiered in 2011 on HBO and became the biggest show on television. A medieval drama with big production values and complex family dynamics. Sound familiar? Covington Cross was just on the wrong network, in the wrong year, without the right platform to let it find its people. Timing is everything in television. It really, really is. Blossom. Here we go. Here's the one that's going to get me some comments. Blossom ran on NBC from 1990 to 1995. 5 seasons. 140 episodes. It starred Mayim Bialik as Blossom Russo, a teenage girl navigating life with her single dad and her two brothers, one of whom was Joey Lawrence, who contributed the word "whoa" to the English language, and for that, we should all be grateful. The show was at its peak, as pulling close to 30 million viewers per episode. 30 million. Let that sink in. That is an almost incomprehensible number by modern standards. Blossom was a top 20 show for multiple seasons. It won awards. Mayim Bialik became a genuine teen icon. The oversized hats, the vests, the whole aesthetic. It was everywhere. And it dealt with real stuff, not just sitcom fluff. Blossom tackled teen pregnancy, drug abuse, eating disorders, and sexual assault. For a family sitcom airing in the early 90s, that was bold. The show had a reputation for going places that other teen comedies wouldn't touch. Here's the part I find genuinely baffling. 140 episodes. That's a healthy syndication number. The show should have lived forever in afternoon rerun blocks. It should be on Peacock right now, with a dedicated fan base. Mayim Bialik went on to become one of the most recognizable faces on television again with The Big Bang Theory, which means there's a built-in audience that would circle back to Blossom out of curiosity alone. But it's barely anywhere. It's not streaming in any accessible way. It doesn't come up in 90s nostalgic conversations the way it should. If those shows are remembered, celebrated, endlessly discussed, and rewatched. But the Sinbad Show has been quietly left out of that conversation almost entirely. And I think part of that is the teen sitcom problem. Shows that are specifically targeted at a teenage audience in a specific era have a harder time crossing generational lines later. The humor is dated in a particular way. The references are hyper-specific. The fashion is, and I say this with love, absolutely unhinged by modern standards. But still, 30 million viewers. You don't just forget 30 million viewers, except apparently we do, because here we are. Joey Lawrence is still out there saying, "whoa," at various intervals, and I respect that commitment to a bit more than I can possibly express. The pattern. Why these shows disappeared. So, what do my two dads in the Sinbad Show and Covington Cross and Blossom all have in common, besides the fact that you just spent the last 10 minutes going, "Oh yeah, I totally remember that"? A few things, and they're worth understanding, because they explain a lot about how television memory actually works. First, streaming gaps. This is the big one. We are living in an era where if something isn't on a major streaming platform, it effectively doesn't exist for a new generation of viewers. Friends gets rewatched because it's accessible. Seinfeld gets rewatched because it's accessible. These forgotten shows from the 90s are locked in licensing limbo, sitting in studio vaults, unavailable or hard to find. And when a show isn't available, it stops being talked about. When it stops being talked about, it stops being remembered. It's a cycle, and it's ruthless. Second, syndication math. I mentioned this earlier, but it's worth repeating. Syndication in the 90s was the difference between immortality and oblivion. Shows that hit those rerun blocks on TBS, or Nick at Night, or local affiliates, got burned into your brain, whether you meant to watch them or not. You'd come home from school, turn on the TV, and there it was. That's how you get a generation that can still recite Full House episodes from memory. The shows that missed syndication, whether because they were canceled too early or because their tone didn't fit the rerun market, just faded. Third, and this one's a little harder to explain, but I think it's real, there's a cruelty to how pop culture decides what gets preserved and what doesn't. It's not always about quality. It's not always about ratings. Sometimes it's about which show got the right documentary treatment, the right retrospective, the right cast member who stayed famous enough to keep bringing it up in interviews. My Two Dads doesn't have that. The Sinbad Show doesn't have that. Blossom is getting closer now that Mayim Bialik is more prominent again, but it's still not there. The 90s produced more genuinely watched, genuinely beloved television than almost any decade in history, and a huge chunk of it just quietly slipped through the cracks while we were all busy rewatching the one where Ross and Rachel get together for the 14th time, which is fine. That episode is great. I'm not a monster. But these shows existed. Real people made them. Real people watched them. Real people grew up with them. And they deserve to be part of the conversation about what 90s television actually was, not just the version of it that streaming algorithms decided to preserve. So the next time you're scrolling through a streaming service, squinting at the algorithm recommendations, and you feel that faint flicker of something, a theme song you can't quite place, a face you almost recognize, a laugh track echoing from somewhere in your childhood. Trust that instinct. Go digging, because there's a whole graveyard of television out there, full of shows that 20, 30, sometimes 40 million people watched every single week that are now just gone. And honestly, that's why old TV cinema exists. What? To dig through that graveyard, dust things off, and hold them up to the light for a minute. Even the ones that probably deserve to stay buried. I'm looking at you, Covington Cross. Actually, no, I take that back. Give Covington Cross another chance. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like. It genuinely helps the channel more than you know. Subscribe if you want more retro TV deep dives, and drop a comment below with the 90s show you remember that nobody else seems to. I read all of them, I promise. Even the weird ones, especially the weird ones. I'm Aaron. This is Old TV Cinema. Thanks for watching.